I mean, bankers are people too, and the banking industry has undoubtedly had people in it who have disgraced that industry. But I would like to, warn you a little bit about this, as it were, because it's very much in government's interest, this government's interest, to personalise this issue onto one sector, one group of people, indeed on occasions one individual, and to blame an individual at the same time to blame a global downturn. Who is it that's missing between these two things? It's our government. It's the UK government that still takes no responsibility for this. Before the 2005 election, they could have checked personal debt, but they didn't. They were too keen to get back into office, and we're paying for that now. Tessa Jowell mentioned the 1.3 billion that you're spending on Job Centre Plus. But just go on to the other side of this. Look at the waste this government is engaging in. The waste, 1.3 billion for Job Centre Plus. In the last few years since the last election, this government has spent 1 billion, just less than that, on advertising. This is monumental waste, and they don't have to do it. And people should be a lot angrier than they are about the waste that this government has been making of their money. No, I think it's a preposterous idea. I myself think that we should be doing everything we can to pump money into the drinking industry in this country, and have made a personal commitment to do so. But really, I mean, they've got to be joking. I mean, during a recession to have a sort of gimmick and trick like this, the social benefits of doing this, I can't see. I don't think anyone can. Binge drinking, the reasons why our town centres are as they are on Friday and Saturday nights, not because young people, middle-aged drinkers rather, need to sort of be taxed extra pences on their pints and wine. I mean, you know, it's pretty simple to stop town centres being the way they are, if that's what they're aiming for. You don't have bar after bar after bar. You don't have drink as much as you can for £10. You don't encourage people, young people, to drink these kind of, you know, alcopop kind of things and sell them off for £1 a go. I don't see why the rest of us have to be punished during this recession. This is one of the few ways I can see to get out of this recession, or at least to bear it.
No, I don't think they should. My party opposed tuition fees. One of the main reasons for that is that students, when they go to university, already acquire very substantial debt as a result of their living costs. They probably leave universities with £15,000, £20,000 worth of debt. If you then add tuition fees on top of it, you're creating a vast amount of debt, which they take into the world. Of course, they pay it back over a period of years, but it adds to the mortgages that they're going to eventually have to acquire to acquire property. And we think that this is fundamentally wrong, and it discourages people who are otherwise highly qualified, who come from modest means, to pursue a university education.
So how do you keep the quality of universities up if you can't fund it?
Well,
the pickle we're in and you can't get it.
I think the answer to that question is that if you are going to give free tuition to pupils, and not just full-timers but part-timers, you have to reduce the numbers. I mean, at the moment there is this ludicrous objective of saying that half of the whole population should go to university. There's some target that the government set, and that's completely unnecessary. I mean, people who are qualified, people who've worked hard at school, got good grades, of course they should go to college and be properly supported, and that's the future of our higher education and our future of our educated manpower. But there are far too many people going through because of this ridiculous 50% target.
I couldn't agree more. The government and I think this country has to have a serious rethink about the nature of our universities. I think there are more than 100 institutions now described as universities by the government, and the proliferation of this area is going to mean that it is underfunded. Somebody has to pay. Somebody has to pay for people going for years through education. Now, either every single taxpayer in the country has to pay for this, or my centre, the Centre for Social Cohesion, is about to release a report on funding showing the terrible underfunding in this country of universities has meant that universities are going to regimes, foreign regimes with terrible human rights records, for instance, in order to find some funding. This is not a good situation. Now, if the government in this country could just rethink this issue, do we really want to keep on producing, I think it's a very wicked thing myself, but to keep on producing a generation after generation of young people doing degrees that will not help them get a job, leaving them massively in debt, and lying to them that they're going to have jobs from these degrees at the end? I think that's a very wicked thing to do. We should be preparing young people for careers that matter. I mean, the famous example is that, you know, there are more people coming out of universities every year in this country with photography degrees than we need photographers in the whole of Europe. It's a bad thing to be fibbing to people like this, but we have to look at where the money should come from. I think it's fairly clear when the 2010 cap comes off, universities are going to have to go into effectively an open market of if you want to go to the top universities, you pay for it. Now, that doesn't mean that you pay the top rate, that everyone pays an impossible rate. It means you do something like Harvard does, which is that there's a means-blind test. People who go in get their place if they're the best people for the roles, and they pay what they can afford. And I think that's a perfectly good system. And I think in this country it might be the only way to keep us having, as we currently have, world-class universities.
Okay.
Just an answer to Mr. Coburn. I mean, a lot of people, he referred to the amount of too many people going through universities because of the government agenda. Beforehand, some people weren't able to. I teach at a comprehensive school in Queen's Park in London. We take great pride that many of our students will be the first in their family to go to university. And that's supported by the government's widening participation agenda. My fear, especially if you open it up to the market, is that you can't widen participation because this tuition fees rise will narrow those who can afford it.
What do you say to Douglas Murray's point that there are more people doing photography in college than there is a demand for photographers in the whole of Europe? In other words, that what he said was that we're lying to a generation about the advantages of going to university.
I think we should definitely be careful about the courses they're doing and not necessarily lying, but better advice is important as well.
Okay.
But the chance that people can go to university is an amazing opportunity in this country.
Nobody
you don't
disagrees
get
with
in
that.
others.
Nobody disagrees with that, but access to universities, social mobility in the last generation, in the last 15, 20 years, has gone down. We need to encourage it to go up again. Everyone wants more access. Everyone. I mean, it's a good thing in so many ways, and now we've got it, we might as well do the best that we can with it. But I have to say that, I mean, we could do in the London Olympics with not having the kind of, I think most people agree, kind of grotesque overspend on opening and closing ceremonies and so on, where you just see your money actually go up in smoke. And I have to give it, I was always sort of against it. I have to say it was not for financial reasons. I just think we sell ourselves so badly in the new Labour era as a culture, particularly after seeing the closing ceremony in Beijing. And embarrassment there. I remember watching the end of the Athens Games and seeing they had not to sound too culturally snobbish, but I mean they had a reading from one of Greece's great 20th century poets, a recording of Maria Callas, Mahler 3 playing in the background. I can't help fearing that our Olympics is going to have a closing ceremony with, you know, another reunion of the Spice Girls and a reading by Kylie Minogue or something.